I didn't want to die. I mean, and I didn't see much chance of living, but I was gradually getting frozen up. And by the grace of God, I came across a lifeboat, and they pulled me in.
A century-old tragedy still speaks through the images it left behind. Photographs of luxury, routine, and fleeting human moments aboard the Titanic, each hiding secrets for generations. Now, AI restoration peels back time's blur, revealing faces in the crowd, words on forgotten pages, and evidence that may rewrite history. One image left experts pale when they zoomed in, uncovering something unexpected. From the iceberg, believed to have sealed their fate to the smallest, most haunting artifacts of life on board, these aren't just pictures. They're fragments of truth. Today, we reveal 50 unforgettable Titanic photographs. The iceberg that doomed the ship. 2 days before the Titanic's sinking, Captain W. DeWood of the SS Etonian captured a black and white photograph of a massive iceberg while crossing the Atlantic. He carefully recorded its coordinates, just miles from where the Titanic would collide with an iceberg on April 14, 1912. AI analysis of the image confirms a striking match to survivor sketches, adding weight to the belief that this was the iceberg. Wood developed the photo upon his arrival in New York, boldly inscribing on it that it had been the iceberg responsible. Forensic analysis of its shape and surface pattern revealed hair-raising accuracy according to historical accounts. It is thus unspeakably haunting among the few artifacts connected to Titanic's fate. If you thought that iceberg was chilling, just wait until you see the life-saving gear that wasn't so life-saving after all. Titanic's life vests. Titanic carried enough cork and canvas life vests for every passenger and crew member, over 2,000 in total. Photographs show their heavy cork pads sewn into canvas, secured only by thin fabric ties. Survivors recalled that when worn during jumps into the freezing Atlantic, the vest's buoyancy could snap necks or knock passengers unconscious on impact. Culpable as they were, these vests sustained some folks long enough to be rescued, although many perished of exposure. A handful of original Titanic life jackets exist still today, worn and weathered from water. One was sold at auction for $119,000 as an ever-so-diligent reminder of that disaster's cost in human lives. The boy on Titanic's deck. In April 1912, 6-year-old first-class passenger Robert Douglas Spedden was photographed playing with a spinning top on the Titanic's deck. The image, taken just days before the sinking, now enhanced with AI, reveals fine details: the weave of his coat, the polished wood beneath his feet, and the ship's railings reflected in the deck. Robert slept through the crash and woke for a moment as his nurse told him they would see the stars. He escaped by lifeboat, but sadly, 3 years later, he was slayed in one of the earliest recorded automobile accidents in Maine. The Gymnasium. Titanic's Gymnasium, located on the boat deck near the grand staircase, was a marvel for its time, offering electric camels, rowing machines, and stationary bicycles. AI enhancement of surviving photographs reveals floor scuffs, mirror smudges, and the bright oak paneling in remarkable detail, capturing the energy of passengers using the space in the final days. The first-class passengers paid for a shilling for a session with the physical instructor, T.W. Macaulay. He was said to have kept his post in the gymnasium until the eve of the sinking of Titanic, when he perished with the ship. Lifeboats waiting in vain. A photograph by Reverend F.M. Breton, who disembarked before the disaster, shows the Titanic's lifeboats neatly stowed beside the bridge. The ship carried 20 lifeboats, enough for barely half the people on board, yet more than required by outdated maritime law. AI image scaling confirms their capacity could have saved all if there had been twice as many. That night on April 14, 1912, Many lifeboats were launched partially filled because the officers feared that the lowering apparatus might actually get compromised with a full load. Earlier that morning, a lifeboat drill had been arranged but was cancelled. The compromised hull. A construction photo of the Titanic's hull at Harland and Wolff shows over 3 million iron and steel rivets securing its plates. Recent analysis, inspired by journalist Sinan Maloney's research, suggests a coal bunker fire before the maiden voyage may have weakened part of the hull. AI thermal imaging of the photo reveals faint heat distortion along one section of plating. This purportedly kindized zone, while Titanic collided with the iceberg, could have ruptured much more easily, which then led to flooding happening at a much quicker pace. This is still subjected to debates. The theory indeed adds a chilling twist to the whole disaster, as it suggests that the very fate of the ship might have been sealed before it had even left port. Launch day faces. On May 31st, 1911, more than 100,000 people gathered in Belfast to watch the Titanic's launch into the River Lagan. In photographs from that day, AI facial recognition has matched some dockside spectators to later images taken in Queenstown, 3 days before the ship's final departure, including one man with no record of being a passenger or crew. 22 tons of soap and tallow were used to lighten the hull into water for the launching operation that lasted for only 62 seconds. Actually, film freezes some moments of excitement among the crowd, unaware of the tragedy to come. Second-class dining room. Titanic's second-class dining room, located on D-deck, could seat nearly 400 passengers at long mahogany tables bolted to the floor. AI-enhanced images reveal the deep crimson upholstery and, carved faintly into the wood paneling, the date April 10th, possibly the work of a passenger who later survived. After dinner, there was music from a band, while meals were prepared in the same galley serving first class. The room had great elegance and comfort, and was one of the best second-class accommodations of its day. The reading and writing room. Titanic's first-class reading and writing room, intended as a quiet retreat mainly for women, was furnished with silk-upholstered chairs, tall windows, and Georgian-style decor. AI contrast enhancement of a surviving photo reveals the faint silhouette of a seated figure at the far window. Someone never identified. It is located on A-deck, near the lounge, and was a space where passengers could borrow books or write letters. Unfortunately, it saw little use during the voyage, making the presence of this mysterious figure all the more intriguing. Titanic's smoking room. The first-class smoking room, reserved for men, featured inlaid mahogany, stained glass windows, and a fireplace topped with Norman Wilkinson's painting Approach to the New World. AI colorization of a final photograph captures the warm glow of the room just as survivor accounts describe. They played cards here until dawn on April 14th. Major Archibald Butt, Francis Millet, and others then fled into the night in search of safety, but some reportedly stayed behind, waiting for the inevitable, thus making this place one of the last places where life continued as usual on board the Titanic. Riveting danger. Construction photos of Titanic reveal workers securing over 3 million rivets that held the steel plates together. Many were hammered in by hand without safety gear. AI-enhanced close-ups show tiny imperfections and micro-cracks in several rivet heads, flaws later found in recovered wreckage. There are even some historians who think that these low-quality rivets, particularly in the ship's forward sections, can be blamed for hull failure after colliding with the iceberg. Whether or not they were decisive, the photographs capture the mammoth and hazardous labor involved in building the unsinkable ship. The captain's inspection. A candid photograph shows Captain Edward J. Smith during a deck inspection in the days before the Titanic's sinking. AI enhancement reveals 2 crew members in the background, later matched through genealogy to descendants unaware their relatives had served on the ship. During his usual inspections of the vessel and conducting a church service on Sundays, Smith also abstained from the normally scheduled lifeboat drill on that particular Sunday morning. The person himself considers it one of the most disputed openings in the trip. Children at play. A rare photograph captures children chasing a ball across the Titanic's deck, a moment of joy before tragedy. AI enhancement reveals a faint white star line logo on the ball, suggesting it may have been a promotional item provided to young passengers. Well, quite many children aboard were leaving their country with their families to begin a new life in America. As for the first-class children, they had more deck space privy to them for play, but such moments were enjoyed by all, passing glimpses of innocence on a doomed ship. Titanic's Grand Staircase. No original photographs of the Titanic's Grand Staircase are known to exist. Using images of her sister ship, Olympic, and Nat Geo's 2025 digital recreation, AI has reconstructed the sweeping oak banisters, ornate wrought iron railings, and the domed skylight that bathed the area in natural light. This magnificent area served as a convergence point for only first-class passengers and showcased the luxuries of the ship. The recreation allows modern audiences to virtually step into the most famous interior of the unsinkable Titanic ship. Crew muster. A photograph of the Titanic's crew assembled for muster reveals a seemingly ordinary scene, until enhanced. AI zoom analysis shows one man clutching a folded paper, its edges visible between his fingers. Historians speculate it could have been an unlogged iceberg warning. Crew safety drills were mandatory for all personnel in order to be aware of their duties during emergencies. Such drills were crucial during the maiden voyage of the Titanic, and yet evidence suggests that safety practices were not followed strictly, leaving an eerie note in what could otherwise appear an unpretentious group portrait. The Marconi Room. Titanic's Marconi Room housed the ship's wireless telegraph equipment, operated by Jack Phillips and Harold Bride. In a surviving photograph, AI enhancement reveals an open logbook on the desk with the faint words, "Ice Report, 14 April." This tiny little room became the communication lifeline to other ships and shore stations. On the night of the disaster, Phillips and Bride worked hard sending out distress calls. Hundreds of lives were saved through their efforts, even as Titanic's fate proved irrevocable. Boat deck sunrise. An early morning photograph captures the calm expanse of the North Atlantic from Titanic's boat deck. AI colorization brings to life the pale pink and gold hues of the horizon, matching survivor descriptions of the dawn after the sinking. In those days, such scenes would seem ordinary for a passenger taking in the fresh air from the open sea. In retrospect, this placid picture seems in harsh contrast with the din and disaster that were to occur on these same decks only a few days hence. Titanic's kitchens. A photograph of the Titanic's kitchens shows chefs standing proudly among gleaming copper pots and cooking ranges. AI enhancement brings out the fine details, from the tiled walls to a menu card resting on a shelf, now legible as listing the dishes served on April 14, 1912. The culinary crew on board prepared dishes for more than 2,200 passengers, as well as the staff of the ship, ranging from elaborate multi-dish dinners in first class to pottage for third-class travelers. First-class cabins. Titanic's first-class cabins were designed for maximum comfort, with rich wood paneling, plush bedding, and ornate furnishings. Photographs reveal personal touches left by their occupants: an open jewelry case on a dresser, a folded letter on a writing desk. The luxurious private rooms represented the lifestyle of the richest of the rich, who traveled with exquisite clothing, jewelry, and sometimes servants. The surviving photos today, which have been somewhat enhanced by AI, give a very rare opportunity to observe the luxury and sophistication epitomizing Titanic as the finest symbol of luxury travel in her time. The officer's mess. A rare photograph of the Titanic's officer's mess shows uniformed men gathered around a neatly set table. AI enhancement reveals a wall clock reading 2:10, likely taken just before the session ended. This small dining space for senior officers had private meals and discussions about the working of the ship outside the earshot of passengers. The photo captures a moment of the routine and camaraderie, only days by which time those officers will find themselves faced with the unparalleled crisis of Titanic's sinking. Cargo hold loading. A photograph of Titanic's cargo hold shows dock workers hauling luggage and freight aboard. AI magnification highlights a trunk stenciled with the name S. Franklin, a person absent from passenger and crew lists. She was laden with correspondence, expensive belongings, and personal effects in her holds. Perishables also reached New York garlands. These pictures of commuter loading exist in stark contrast to the fate of the vessel, which is where a majority of this cargo sink with their secrets to the ocean floor. The first-class promenade. Titanic's first-class promenade stretched along a deck, offering sheltered views of the sea through glass partitions. In a rare photograph, AI reflection analysis reveals the faint outline of a figure in the window, possibly the photographer, whose identity remains unknown. This area was where rich passengers enjoyed early morning walks and socializing, entertaining fresh air without confronting bad weather. With an image like this, one can perceive the elegance and hushed exclusivity that defined first-class life aboard the ill-fated liner. The ship's bell. A clear photograph of Titanic's ship's bell shows its polished brass surface and fine etching. AI magnification reveals tiny spots of corrosion, unusual for a vessel so new. The bell, perched by the forecastle, was in the lookout's domain for signaling hazards, ringing 3 sharp clangs in case of an iceberg ahead. On the night of April 14, 1912, Lookout Frederick Fleet rang it a moment before telephoning the bridge, a warning that came too late to avert catastrophe. The Officers' Bridge. A photograph taken from Titanic's bridge captures the commanding view over the bow. AI enhancement reveals a smudge on the glass windscreen, likely from a gloved hand, perhaps a lookout or officer on duty. From this position, Captain Smith, along with his officers, navigated the ship out of Southampton and into the North Atlantic. It was on the night of April 14th, when the iceberg warning was received, that evasive action was ordered just moments before it was struck here. The mail room. A photograph of the Titanic's mail room shows postal clerks sorting letters among towering stacks of mailbags. AI enhancement makes the legible part of an envelope reading, "Deliver upon arrival in New York. Urgent." Over 3,400 mailbags were carried over by the ship, a passenger liner and a floating post office in itself. On the night of the sinking, clerks reportedly worked to move registered mail to higher decks. Third-class general room. Titanic's third-class general room was a lively social space, furnished with wooden tables and benches where passengers played cards, sang, and talked. In one photograph, AI enhancement reveals an unopened suitcase in the corner, possibly due to strict steerage luggage inspections. This was the destination, the traveling meaning for many of the emigrants. The warmth of this room was entirely at variance with the cutting experience of what most would have to face soon in the icy Atlantic. Engine room crew. A photograph of the Titanic's engine room crew shows men posed before the ship's massive turbines. AI motion blur reduction reveals the faint outline of steam curling from a pressure valve behind them. Crew member operated under extreme heat and noise conditions. They manned the engines which powered the biggest ship in the whole world. While the ship was sinking, much of the crew stayed at their posts to keep running lights and pumps as sacrifices. The lookout's post. A photograph of the Titanic's lookout post captures the base of the crow's nest ladder against the open sky. AI height mapping illustrates the steep and exposed climb faced by lookouts like Frederick Fleet on April 14, 1912. At this high vantage point, Fleet saw the iceberg first and sounded the alarm before flagging the bridge. The picture reflects the loneliness and responsibility that these people have in this place and their constant watchfulness with regard to navigation in this icy North Atlantic passage. A lifeboat drill that never happened. A photograph from April 14th shows crew members gathered near the Titanic's lifeboats, seemingly prepared for a drill. AI analysis confirms the scene matches the morning when the planned lifeboat exercise was abruptly cancelled by Captain Smith. The decision remains one of the most criticized choices during the voyage, as regular drills could have enhanced both the speed and efficiency of an actual evacuation. Titanic's flags. A harbor photograph captures the Titanic's white Star Line flags fluttering in the wind. AI color restoration pinpoints the exact shade of crimson used, a tone unique to Titanic and her sister ship, Olympic. Flags were nothing merely decorative. They conveyed the identity of the craft and the pride of her company. Brilliant in color on departure days, they against the sky symbolized that confidence in a voyage that, sadly, would never be completed. The Turkish baths. A rare interior photograph of the Titanic's Turkish baths reveals ornate tiled walls, marble benches, and soft lighting. AI scans detect faint water stains along the lower tiles, possibly from a leak during the ship's sea trials. This facility was built along the lines of a Victorian spa, as conceived by a traveler or pilgrim. There are a few ships that would be able to boast such amenities at that time, much less place them next to one another as hallmarks of the opulence of Titanic and as reminders of the many comforts lost when it sunk. The Barbershop. A photograph of Titanic's barbershop shows neatly arranged brushes, scissors, and bottles of hair tonic. AI enhancement makes the labels readable, revealing they were prepared for the New York market, goods that would never arrive. The barbershop functioned not only as a grooming center, but also as a gathering site where travelers could share news, hearsay, and interesting stories. First-class lounge. A photograph of Titanic's first-class lounge reveals polished wood paneling, plush chairs, and sunlight filtering through large windows. AI enhancement brings book titles into focus, including The Life of Nelson and Voyages of Discovery. This was an asylum of sorts for reading, swallowing extravagant conversations, and tea time for the afternoon in wealthy passengers. The photograph appreciates the refinement of this room, a place of leisure and elegance just before the tragic death of the ship in the icy North Atlantic. Lifeboat Davits. A photograph of Titanic's Lifeboat Davits shows the curved metal arms poised to swing boats out over the sea. AI inspection reveals a subtle kink in one rope, a flaw later noted in official inquiries. The davits were able to lower boats loaded to their full capacity, yet many lifeboats left an especially empty ship. Picture stands as a confused testament to the unrealized potential of a Titanic safety apparatus that could have saved thousands more if put into proper use. The crowded dock at Cherbourg. A photograph of the crowded dock at Cherbourg shows passengers boarding tenders bound for Titanic. AI facial recognition links one face in the crowd to a survivor later photographed aboard the Carpathia. Cherbourg was Titanic's first call after leaving Southampton, where first-class and second-class passengers boarded the voyage. It is a lively scene, brimming with excitement and anticipation. The band's practice room. A photograph of Titanic's band practice room shows instruments neatly arranged in the cramped space. AI enhancement brings a sheet of music into focus, revealing the title Autumn, one of the last songs survivors recalled hearing as the ship sank. This humble chamber became the initial stage for musicians, whose valor has reached iconification. They struck sweet music to soothe the passengers while disaster came close at hand. And that last note seemed as if it rang across the decks to the final moment. The lifeboat lowering mechanism. A close-up photograph of the Titanic's lifeboat lowering mechanism reveals winches and pulleys in precise detail. AI inspection suggests the system was fully capable of handling fully loaded boats, contradicting officers' fears at the time. The machinery was vital to getting lifeboats emptied quickly and safely. But it was limited in what it could do because of hesitation and partial loading. Officer Lightoller in uniform. A portrait of Second Officer Charles Lightoller shows him in full uniform, standing confidently before the voyage. AI upscaling reveals the faintest trace of a smile, rare among Titanic's crew photographs. Lightoller would become the highest-ranking officer to survive the sinking, later known for enforcing a policy of women and children first in the evacuations. This image captures an instance of quiet authority just days before he confronted the calamity of that dreadful night. The ship's telegraph. A photograph of the Titanic's gleaming brass ship's telegraph shows the command "full ahead" clearly marked. AI enhancement sharpens every engraved letter and polished surface. Survivor accounts say that the instrument was set to this particular order when the iceberg was hit. The telegraphic device would communicate engine orders below from the bridge, one of the most vital links in the chain of command through common navigation and in those frantic moments before disaster. The smoking chimneys. A photograph of the Titanic's towering funnels shows thick plumes of smoke rising into the sky. AI analysis by Nat Geo's 2025 Recreation confirms a mix of Welsh steam coal and bunker coal was being burned, possibly linked to the suspected coal bunker fire. These smoking chimneys were an unmistakable symbol of the Titanic's power and modernity. Yet behind their grandeur may have been a hidden hazard, one that some historians believe contributed to the ship's vulnerability on the night she sank. The first-class elevator. A photograph of the Titanic's first-class electric elevator shows polished wood paneling and a brass bell-push panel, cutting-edge technology for 1912. AI reflection analysis reveals a faint blur, possibly a steward hurrying past. Passengers of the highest caliber would travel between decks in supreme comfort and style, while the elevator stood as a testimonial of luxury and innovation. The elevator emphasized Titanic's status as a floating palace, one that combined elegance with the engineering marvels of its day. The officer group photo. A group photograph of Titanic's senior officers captures them in formal uniforms just days before the voyage. AI facial analysis identifies one man as unknown, with no match in crew records. In this image, we see an unguarded moment of the few men who dared to master the world's biggest ship. In 1 week's time, many of these men would perish in the icy waters of the Atlantic, and their faces would thus become a part of the legendary Titanic. The lifeboats at Queenstown. A photograph taken at Queenstown shows passengers leaning over Titanic's rails as tenders deliver final cargo and mail. AI enhancement reveals a crate stenciled with the word "urgent", its contents still a mystery. Queenstown was, in fact, Cove, the last port of call for the Titanic before it headed to America. The scene reflects a moment of peaceful routine, and it was last land for most on board, possible the saddest moment in the history of the ship's ill-fated journey. Titanic's final departure. The last known photograph of the Titanic shows her stern receding into the horizon as she departs. AI horizon mapping pinpoints the location, aligning with theories of where a coal bunker fire was burning deep inside the ship. This represents the end of a very brief port state in the life of Titanic, and the beginning of her doomed voyage. To the observants on shore, it was an inspiring and proud sight, unaware that they were actually witnessing history's most grand maritime tragedy in the making. The Captain's Final Evening. A rare photograph from April 14th shows Captain Edward Smith seated at the head of a dinner table. AI lip-reading analysis suggests he was telling a light-hearted joke moments before retiring for the night. It is here that calmness and almost joviality are very different things from the chaos which will be produced after several hours. The last hour of the captain before becoming charged with the heart-pounding responsibility of guiding the Titanic through its ill-fated encounter with the iceberg will actually cut the sudden, very short breath of oblivion. The Unseen Passenger. A candid group photograph of officers and passengers on the Titanic's boat deck hides a mystery. AI enhancement reveals a tall man in a dark coat, standing slightly apart, his face obscured from view. Facial mapping has not matched him to any passenger or crew records, thus raising speculation about his persona. The unidentified person could be an unregistered traveler, another who slipped in last minute, or one forgotten by the already overwhelmed crew. This aspect of his presence only adds another layer to the ship's enduring mystery. First-class dining room in rich detail. A photograph of the Titanic's first-class dining room reveals ornate wood paneling, gleaming silverware, and fresh flowers. AI enhancement sharpens the scene, highlighting one chair slightly askew with an untouched place setting. The records state that this seat had been reserved for a passenger who mysteriously never boarded. The image captures the grandeur and refinement of the dining experience, providing a glimpse into the elegance that defined the existence of Titanic's richest travelers before the disaster. The heated saltwater pool. Titanic's heated saltwater pool, located on the starboard side of F deck, was a rare luxury in 1912. Filled with warm seawater and available only to first-class passengers, it had separate bathing times for men and women with a small fee for use. Wonderful artificial intelligence restoration completely unveiled the soft, shimmering tiled walls and a ghostly reflection of a figure beneath rippling surfaces. The esteemed Colonel Archibald Gracie went swimming there barely a day before the ship sank, describing the waters as refreshing. Perhaps it is the most unusual offering at sea up till now. Third-class passengers in color. AI colorization breathes life into a rare photograph of the Titanic's third-class passengers. Bright scarves, patched jackets, and worn boots stand out, painting a vivid picture of the steerage experience. The child is seen gripping a rag doll, probably a gift from a first-class passenger, that offers minimal consolation before tragedy strikes. The image captures the humanity and tenacity of those on the most lowest level of the ship. Captain Smith and the Purser. A photograph of Captain Edward Smith with Purser Hugh McElroy shows both men in crisp uniforms. AI enhancement sharpens the creases in Smith's jacket and the tense set of McElroy's jaw. Such lip-reading specialists would claim that the pair did discuss iceberg warnings only moments before this photo was actually taken. This portrait has captured a key moment, affording a snapshot into the palpable tension right before the fatal event that tragically saw the Titanic collide headlong into an iceberg. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Titanic's mysteries, hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more history brought to life. Don't stop here. Click the next video on your screen and keep exploring the untold stories.